The heavy wooden doors close behind you with a final, echoing thud that seals your fate. The scent of expensive incense, frankincense, and myrrh hangs thick in the air, masking something else beneath it. The coppery tang of fear and the sweet rot of decay. Your eyes struggle to adjust to the dim light filtering through stained glass windows, casting colourful patterns on marble floors polished to a mirror sheen. Around you, other girls shuffle forward, their silken slippers making no sound, their faces pale in the half-darkness. You have entered the imperial harem of the Ottoman Sultan, and though the walls are adorned with gold leaf and precious gems, you have just entered a prison. The journey here has stripped you of everything familiar. Perhaps you were the daughter of a merchant in Venice, captured by Barbary pirates. Maybe you were a Georgian princess, offered as a gift to cement an alliance. Or possibly, you were simply a girl from a village in the Caucasus, torn from your family during a slave raid. Regardless of your origins, you are now property, valuable property. But property nonetheless. The eunuchs who guard this place have already renamed you, stripping away your identity like they stripped away your clothing when you arrived. "Welcome to the House of Felicity," says the chief black eunuch, his voice a dry rasp that betrays no emotion. The irony of the name is not lost on you. Nothing about this place feels felicitous. The opulence is overwhelming. Jewels embedded in every surface, silk draperies cascading from ceiling to floor, golden candelabras casting flickering light. But it serves only to highlight the horror of your situation. This is not a home. It is a gilded cage designed to display the Sultan's wealth and power, with human beings as the exhibits. The harem, or harem, in Arabic meaning forbidden place, is more than just a residence. It is a city within a city, a labyrinth of over 400 rooms housing hundreds of women, children, and eunuchs, all contained within the walls of the Topkapi Palace in Constantinople. As Leslie P. Pierce notes in her seminal work, The Imperial Harem, this institution was simultaneously the private domain of the Ottoman dynasty and a powerful political entity that influenced the course of the empire for centuries. You are led through corridors that seem to twist endlessly, each turn revealing new wonders and new terrors. Here, a fountain splashes in a courtyard garden filled with night-blooming flowers. There, a group of older women watch you with hollow eyes, their faces beautiful but empty. The contrast between beauty and horror is dizzying. Every surface gleams with precious materials, yet the atmosphere is heavy with unspoken suffering. The Valid Sultan, the Sultan's mother, rules this domain with absolute authority. Though you have not yet seen her, you feel her presence in every rule, every restriction, every whispered warning from the girls who have been here longer. Never look directly at the Sultan, one whispers urgently. Never speak unless spoken to. Never forget that your life is worth less than the porcelain cups from which he drinks. As you are taken to the bathing chambers to be purified and prepared, you catch glimpses of the life that awaits you. Some women move with confidence, wearing jewels that mark them as favourites of the Sultan or his mother. Others hurry with heads bowed, their plain clothing indicating their lowly status. All share the same haunted look in their eyes, the look of caged animals that have forgotten what freedom means. The bathing ritual is humiliating and thorough. Your body is inspected like livestock, every flaw noted and catalogued. Your hair is washed with expensive soaps, your skin rubbed with oils until it gleams. You are dressed in fine silks and given jewelry that would have fed your family for a year. The contrast between this luxury and your powerlessness is nauseating. You are being polished like a precious object, prepared for display, for use, for consumption. As night falls, you are shown to a small room you will share with 3 other girls. The beds are soft, the linens fine, but the window is barred. The sound of the Bosphorus lapping against the palace walls is a constant reminder that freedom is just beyond reach. You lie awake, listening to the muffled sounds of the harem, the distant wail of a woman being punished, the whispered conversations in the corridor, the ever-present footsteps of the eunuchs who watch your every move. Tomorrow, your training will begin. You will learn Turkish, Persian, and Arabic. You will study music, dance, embroidery, and the intricate arts of pleasing a man. You will be molded into the perfect concubine, your former self erased like a word written in sand. The heavy doors that closed behind you today will never open again. You have entered the harem, and there is no escape. The contrast between the magnificent surroundings and the reality of your situation could not be more stark. This is the paradox of the imperial harem, a place of breathtaking beauty that masks unspeakable horror, a realm of immense wealth built on the suffering of countless women like you. As you drift into an uneasy sleep, you understand that the nightmare has only just begun. Your training begins at dawn, before the sun has risen over the minarets of Constantinople. The sound of a bell echoes through the corridors, summoning you and the other new arrivals to begin your transformation. The woman assigned to oversee your education is severe, her face a mask of disapproval as she surveys your ignorance of the customs that will now govern your life. "You are nothing," she begins, her voice cold and precise. "Less than nothing. But through the Sultan's mercy and my instruction, you may become something of value. Do not disappoint us." The days that follow blur into a nightmare of endless lessons and brutal corrections. You struggle to master Turkish, the guttural sounds foreign on your tongue. Every mistake earns a slap or a pinch, sometimes worse. Your hands, once accustomed to simple tasks, now practice intricate embroidery until your fingers bleed. You learn to dance with movements that are both seductive and restrained, to sing in a voice that must be both alluring and submissive. Historical records from the Topkapi Palace archives reveal that most concubines entered the harem between the ages of 12 and 16. You are 14, still a child in many ways, but childhood is a luxury you can no longer afford. The Venetian ambassador Ottaviano Bon wrote in 69 that these girls were taught to dance, to sing, to play instruments, and to read and write, but above all, they are taught the arts of pleasing men. Your body, which has always been your own, is now being reshaped to meet someone else's standards. You are fed rich foods to soften your figure, given special baths to lighten your skin, taught to walk with a sway of the hips that feels unnatural and humiliating. The contrast between your former life running barefoot through fields, the sun on your face, the wind in your hair, and this existence of artificial beauty and constrained movement is a constant source of silent anguish. The catalyst event in your transformation comes without warning. One evening, as you are practicing a particularly difficult dance, the chief black eunuch appears in the doorway. The room falls silent. All eyes turn to you as he beckons you forward. "The Sultan has requested your presence tonight," he says, his voice betraying nothing. "Prepare yourself. This is the moment you have been trained for, the moment that will determine the rest of your life." The other girls look at you with a mixture of envy and pity. They know what you know, that tonight could elevate you to a position of comfort and influence, or it could destroy you completely. The preparation is meticulous and dehumanizing. You are bathed again, your skin rubbed with rare oils until it glows. Your hair is arranged in an elaborate style, jewels woven into the strands. Your eyes outlined with kohl, your lips reddened with berry juice. You are dressed in layers of the finest silk, so sheer they reveal as much as they conceal. When you look in the mirror, you barely recognize yourself. The girl from your memories has vanished, replaced by this creature of artificial beauty. As you are led through the corridors that grow increasingly opulent, you understand the terrible truth of your situation. You are no longer a person, you are an object, a gift to be presented to the most powerful man in the empire. The contrast between his absolute power and your complete helplessness is terrifying. He could choose to favor you, to elevate you, to give you a life of relative comfort, Or he could tire of you, cast you aside, or worse. The door to his chambers opens, and you are pushed inside. The room is dimly lit by candles that cast flickering shadows on walls covered in intricate tiles. The air is thick with the scent of incense and something else, something musky and primal. He is there, seated on cushions, his form indistinct in the candlelight. You approach as you have been taught, head bowed, body moving in the practiced dance of submission. What happens next is a blur of pain and humiliation that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. When it is over, you are dismissed with a wave of his hand, returned to your room like a discarded object. The other girls are waiting, their questions unspoken but clear in their eyes. You say nothing, curling up on your bed and staring at the barred window until dawn. In the weeks that follow, you are summoned again and again. Each time is a little easier to endure, as you learn to separate your mind from your body, to retreat to a place inside yourself where the Sultan cannot reach. This psychological survival mechanism is common among concubines, as noted by the historian Godfrey Goodwin in The Private World of Ottoman Women. The contrast between the innocence of the girl you were and the knowledge forced upon you is heartbreaking. You have learned to navigate the treacherous waters of the harem, to understand its unspoken rules and hierarchies. You have learned that favor is fleeting and that jealousy is the most dangerous emotion in this place. You have learned that your body is not your own, that your desires are irrelevant, that your future depends entirely on pleasing a man who sees you as less than human. The transformation is complete. You are no longer the girl who entered the harem months ago. You are now a concubine, trained and tested, ready to serve the Sultan's pleasure and bear his children. The question that haunts your sleep is simple but terrifying. What will become of you when you are no longer useful? When youth fades and beauty withers, as it inevitably does, the answer lies in the fate of the older women you see scrubbing floors or confined to the darkest corners of the harem, forgotten and invisible. As you drift into an uneasy sleep, you understand that this is only the beginning. The harem has claimed your body, but it has not yet broken your spirit. The daily struggle to maintain some sense of self in this place of constant surveillance and control will define your existence. The nightmare has evolved, but it is far from over. The morning call to prayer echoes through the harem. But it is not a sound of devotion, it is a summons to another day of survival. You rise from your bed, your body aching from the previous night's demands, and join the stream of women flowing toward the communal baths. The air is thick with whispered conversations and sidelong glances, each woman assessing her rivals, seeking advantage, avoiding punishment. This is the reality of daily life in the harem, a constant psychological battle where trust is a luxury no one can afford. The hierarchy of the harem is rigid and unforgiving. At the top sits the Valid Sultan, the Sultan's mother, who wields absolute authority over everyone except her son. Below her are the Sultan's favourites, Hasekis, who have borne him children and enjoy special privileges. Then come the other concubines who have been summoned to the Sultan's bed, ranked according to how often they are called. At the bottom are the new arrivals, and those who have fallen out of favour, who perform menial tasks and live in constant fear of being cast out or punished. Your position shifts constantly, like sand beneath your feet. One week you are a favourite, given beautiful clothes and jewellery, invited to sit near the Valide Sultan during evening entertainments. The next you are ignored, your fine clothing replaced with plain linen, your meals reduced to scraps. This unpredictability is a deliberate psychological tactic designed to keep you off balance, grateful for any kindness, terrified of any disfavour. The chief black eunuch, known as the Kisla Aga, is the master of this psychological warfare. As the guardian of the harem, he controls every aspect of your life. When you eat, when you sleep, when you speak, when you move. His power is absolute, his mercy non-existent. Historical records from the reign of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent describe how the Kisla Aga could make or break a concubine's fortune with a single word to the valid sultan. Remember your place, he reminds you daily, his voice a venomous whisper in your ear. You are nothing without my protection, less than nothing without my favor. The psychological toll is immense. You watch as women around you lose their minds, talking to themselves, weeping uncontrollably, or simply sitting with vacant eyes. The Ottoman chronicler Mustafa Ali wrote of the madness that creeps into the harem like a fog, clouding the minds of even the strongest women. What he described as madness is what modern psychologists would recognize as severe trauma, depression, and anxiety disorders, the inevitable result of long-term confinement and dehumanization. The contrast between the harem's outward appearance and its inner reality is striking. To outsiders, it is a place of unimaginable luxury and beauty. Within its walls, it is a pressure cooker of fear, jealousy, and desperation. During the day, you attend lessons in music, poetry, and religion. You practice embroidery so fine, it seems impossible that human hands could create such work. You listen to musicians play instruments of exquisite craftsmanship. These moments of beauty are shattered by the sudden eruption of violence. A girl beaten for looking at a guard too long, a woman dragged away for some unknown offense, the sound of muffled screams from behind closed doors. Again and again you witness the consequences of displeasing those in power. Again and again you see how quickly favor can turn to disfavor, how privilege can become punishment. The unpredictability is perhaps the most cruel aspect of harem life, preventing any sense of security or peace. The evenings are the most difficult. After the Sultan has chosen his companion for the night, the remaining women gather in the communal spaces, their forced camaraderie masking deep-seated resentment and fear. The valid Sultan often presides over these gatherings, her sharp eyes missing nothing, her comments carefully calculated to sow discord among the women. "You have gained weight," she might say to one, her voice sweet, but her eyes cold. The Sultan prefers slender women. Or to another, "Your embroidery is sloppy." Perhaps more time with your needle and less time dreaming would improve your skills. These public humiliations serve a purpose beyond mere cruelty. They reinforce the power structure, remind everyone of their place, and prevent the formation of alliances that might challenge the valid Sultan's authority. The isolation is perhaps the most effective form of psychological torture. Though surrounded by hundreds of women, you have never felt more alone. Friendships are dangerous, trust is a liability, and genuine affection is a weakness that can be exploited. You learn to wear a mask of indifference, to show no emotion that could be used against you. You learn to watch, to listen, to gather information that might protect you or harm your rivals. The nights are endless. Long after the harem has fallen silent, you lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of suffering around you. Sometimes, it's the muffled sobs of a new girl missing her family. Other times, it's the whispered arguments of women plotting against each other. Occasionally, it's the sound of footsteps in the corridor, followed by the opening of a door and a stifled scream. The psychological manipulation extends to every aspect of your life. Even your name is not your own. When you entered the harem, you were given a new name, something Persian or Turkish, exotic and meaningless to you. This erasure of identity is deliberate, designed to break your connection to your past and make you more malleable, more easily controlled. The contrast between your former self and the person you are becoming is horrifying. You catch glimpses of yourself in polished surfaces and barely recognize the reflection. Your eyes, once bright with curiosity and hope, are now watchful and wary. Your smile, once genuine and frequent, is now a carefully calculated expression used only when necessary. You have learned to suppress your emotions, to control your reactions, to present only what is expected of you. This psychological transformation is the true purpose of the harem training. The Ottoman Empire understood that physical control was not enough. Complete domination required the subjugation of the mind as well. By breaking your spirit, reshaping your identity, and isolating you from any genuine human connection, the harem system creates women who are entirely dependent on their captors, who have lost even the memory of freedom. As another day ends and you prepare for another night of restless sleep, you understand that this is the true horror of the harem, not the physical confinement, not even the sexual exploitation, but the systematic destruction of the self. The body can endure remarkable suffering, but the spirit, once broken, may never heal. And in the harem, breaking spirits is the specialty of those in power. The scream cuts through the night like a knife, sharp and terrible, then abruptly silenced. You freeze in your bed, heart pounding, listening to the sudden silence that follows. This is not the first time you've heard such sounds in the harem, and it will not be the last. In the imperial harem, where life is cheap and power is absolute, death is always present, a shadow that falls without warning, a punishment that awaits any misstep. The morning brings whispers of what happened. A concubine named Zeynep, who had caught the Sultan's eye for 3 consecutive nights, was found dead in her bed. No official explanation is given, but everyone knows the truth. She was killed by the other concubines, likely on the orders of the Valid Sultan, or one of the senior favorites. Her crime was simple. She attracted too much attention, too often. In the harem, success can be as dangerous as failure. This is the reality of life in the innermost circles of power. The competition for the Sultan's favor is not merely a game of status and privilege. It is a battle for survival. The Sultan can father hundreds of children with different concubines, but only one can inherit the throne. The mother of the future Sultan will become the next Valide Sultan, the most powerful woman in the empire. For those ambitious enough to seek this position, or desperate enough to need it, murder is simply another tool in their arsenal. Historical accounts from the reign of Sultan Ibrahim, 1640 to 1645, provide chilling examples of this brutality. Ibrahim, known as Ibrahim the Mad, developed a particular obsession with a concubine named Teli Haseki, covering her in jewels and granting her unprecedented power. When she bore him a son, the other concubines and even the Valide Sultan Kosim began plotting against her. According to Venetian ambassador Contarini, Teli Haseki was eventually strangled on the orders of Kosim, who could not tolerate the threat to her own power. The methods of execution used in the harem were as varied as they were cruel. For those who had committed minor offences or simply fallen out of favour, there was the sack, a leather bag filled with the condemned person who was then thrown into the Bosphorus to drown. This method was considered merciful, as it did not shed blood and therefore did not violate Islamic prohibitions against killing believers. For more serious offences, particularly those involving treason or attempts on the Sultan's life, the punishments were far more gruesome. Historical records describe concubines being burned alive, dismembered, or slowly tortured over days. The Ottoman historian Pasevi wrote of a concubine who attempted to poison Sultan Murad III. She was boiled alive in a great cauldron that all might see the fate of those who betray their sovereign. The contrast between the harem's outward beauty and its inner brutality is never more apparent than during these executions. The same courtyards where musicians play and fountains sparkle have witnessed unspeakable horrors. The same walls, decorated with intricate tiles and calligraphy, have absorbed the screams of the dying. The same gardens filled with fragrant flowers have been used to dispose of bodies. You witness this brutality firsthand when a young concubine named Aye is accused of stealing a jewel from the Valid Sultan. The evidence is circumstantial at best, but the Valide Sultan is in a particularly cruel mood. Aye is dragged into the main courtyard, her clothes torn, her face bruised from the interrogation she has already endured. "Let this be a lesson to all," the Valide Sultan announces, her voice ringing with false righteousness. Theft from the imperial household is theft from the Sultan himself, and such treason cannot be tolerated. The punishment is public humiliation, followed by a beating so severe that Aye loses consciousness multiple times. When it is finally over, she is dragged away, and you never see her again. The official story is that she was sent away to recover, but everyone knows she was likely killed or simply left to die from her injuries. The psychological impact of witnessing such cruelty is profound. Again and again you see what happens to those who transgress, no matter how minor the offence. Again and again you are reminded of your own vulnerability, of how quickly you could be in Aye's place. This constant state of fear is intentional, designed to ensure compliance through terror. The most terrifying aspect of the harem's brutality is its unpredictability. The same action that earns praise one day may earn punishment the next. The same Valide Sultan who shows mercy to a concubine one week may order another's execution the next. This capriciousness keeps everyone off balance, constantly seeking to anticipate the whims of those in power. The Sultan himself is the ultimate source of this terror. Though he may appear benevolent, even kind, during his visits to the harem, he is capable of shocking cruelty. Historical accounts describe Suleiman the Magnificent, one of the greatest Ottoman rulers, ordering the execution of his own son Mustafa on false charges of treason, partly at the instigation of his favourite concubine, Roxolana. If the Sultan could order the death of his own child, what value could he possibly place on the life of a concubine? The contrast between the Sultan's public image as the protector of his people and his private behaviour as a capricious tyrant is staggering. In public, he is the shadow of God on earth, the defender of the faith, the father of his people. In private, he is a man whose absolute power has corrupted him absolutely, capable of acts that would be considered monstrous in any other context. You experience this capriciousness firsthand when the Sultan summons you after a period of neglect. You go to him expecting the usual routine of submission and humiliation, but this time is different. He is in a strangely reflective mood, asking questions about your childhood, your family, your life before the harem. For a moment, you allow yourself to hope that he sees you as a person, not merely an object for his pleasure. This hope proves to be your undoing. When you respond to his questions with unexpected honesty, sharing a memory of your mother teaching you to weave, his expression changes from curiosity to anger. "You dare to speak of another life?" he demands, his voice suddenly cold. "You dare to suggest that there was anything before me?" What follows is a punishment more psychological than physical. He orders that you be confined to the darkest part of the harem, fed only bread and water, and denied all human contact. "Let her remember what life was like before me," he commands. "Then let her see if she prefers that to the luxury I have given her." The isolation is unbearable. In the darkness, with only your thoughts for company, you begin to lose track of time. Days blur into nights, weeks into months. The only human contact is the hand that pushes bread and water through a small opening in your door. The silence is so complete that you begin to hear voices, your mother's voice, your sister's voice, voices from a life that seems increasingly distant and unreal. This is perhaps the most cruel punishment in the harem, not death, but the erosion of the self, the gradual destruction of identity and sanity. When you are finally released, you are a shadow of your former self, your eyes vacant, your responses mechanical. The other concubines avoid you, as if your madness might be contagious. The contrast between the person you were and the person you have become is horrifying. You have survived the physical brutality of the harem, but the psychological damage may be permanent. You move through the days like a ghost, present but not truly there, your body going through the motions while your mind retreats to some safer place. As you witness yet another execution, this time a concubine who dared to love someone other than the Sultan, you understand the ultimate horror of the harem. It is not merely the physical suffering or the constant fear, but the complete dehumanization. The systematic destruction of identity, the reduction of human beings to objects whose only value lies in their utility to others. In the harem, death is sometimes a mercy, a release from a life of constant fear, humiliation, and suffering. As you watch the condemned woman being led away, you cannot help but wonder who is truly being punished, the woman who will die, or those of us who must continue to live in this terrifying nightmare. The news spreads through the harem like wildfire. The Sultan is dead. After years of declining health, he has finally succumbed to illness, leaving the empire in turmoil and the harem in chaos. For you and the other concubines, this moment brings not grief, but a strange mixture of relief and terror. Relief that the man who owned your bodies is gone. Terror about what will happen to you now. The history of the Ottoman Empire is filled with such transitions, each one bringing uncertainty to the thousands of women confined within the imperial harem. When a sultan died, the entire harem would be relocated to the old palace, while the new sultan established his own harem in Topkapi. For some concubines, particularly those who had borne children to the deceased sultan, this meant a life of comfortable retirement. For others, it meant being sold off or married to Ottoman officials in exchange for political favors. For the oldest and least desirable, it often meant a slow death in obscurity. This cycle of replacement and disposal continued for centuries, as the Ottoman Empire rose, flourished, and eventually declined. The harem system reached its peak of power and influence during the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, 1520–566, particularly under the influence of his favorite concubine, Roxolana, who broke tradition by marrying the Sultan and becoming the first official Haseki Sultan. Her rise to power marked a turning point in harem politics, as women began to play increasingly influential roles in the governance of the empire. Over time, however, the power of the harem became a symbol of the empire's corruption and decay. Western observers particularly seized on the harem as evidence of Ottoman barbarism, portraying it as a place of licentiousness and depravity. While these accounts were often exaggerated and coloured by cultural bias, they contained elements of truth that even Ottoman reformers could not deny. By the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire was undergoing a period of modernization known as the Tanzimat, which brought significant changes to the institution of the harem. The practice of enslaving non-Muslims to serve as concubines was gradually phased out, replaced by the system of marriage that was more familiar to Europeans. The physical structure of the harem itself was modified, with more open spaces and greater access to light and air. The final blow to the traditional harem system came with the abolition of the Ottoman Sultanate in 1922 and the establishment of the modern Republic of Turkey in 1923. The imperial harem, which had housed thousands of women over its nearly 500-year history, was emptied of its inhabitants and eventually opened to the public as a museum. Today, visitors to Topkapi Palace can walk through the same corridors where you once trembled in fear, admire the same tiles that reflected your tears, and peer into the same rooms where you endured unimaginable suffering. They listen to tour guides describe the harem as a place of luxury and privilege, occasionally mentioning the less pleasant aspects of life there. But they cannot truly understand the horror of existence within those gilded walls, the constant fear, the psychological torment, the complete erasure of self. The contrast between how the harem is presented to tourists and the reality of life within its walls is striking. The beauty of the architecture, the elegance of the furnishings, the sophistication of the art, all of these are emphasized in the official narrative. The suffering of the women who lived there is minimized, glossed over, or omitted entirely. It is easier to admire the aesthetics of power than to confront its human cost. This selective memory is not unique to the Ottoman Empire. Throughout history, societies have chosen to remember the glory and forget the brutality, to celebrate the achievements and ignore the atrocities. The harem system is just one example of how power corrupts, how absolute power corrupts absolutely, and how those without power are often erased from history, their suffering reduced to footnotes in the stories of the powerful. But the echoes of that suffering linger, not just in the physical spaces of the harem, but in the ongoing struggles for women's rights and human dignity around the world. The commodification of women's bodies, the use of psychological manipulation to maintain control, the reduction of human beings to objects. The lessons of the harem are clear and urgent. Power without accountability leads to corruption and abuse. The dehumanization of others, whether through slavery, caste systems, or gender-based oppression, inevitably leads to suffering. The silencing of voices, the erasure of identities, the denial of autonomy. These are not just historical wrongs, but ongoing injustices that demand recognition and resistance. As you sit in your room in the old palace, watching the sun set over the Bosphorus, you reflect on your life and the lives of the countless women who shared your fate. Some found moments of happiness, even love, within the confines of the harem. A few managed to wield power and influence, shaping the course of the empire. But most endured lives of quiet desperation, their dreams unfulfilled, their potential unrealized, their voices unheard. The contrast between what your life might have been and what it became is a source of constant pain. You might have been a wife, a mother, an artist, a businesswoman. You might have loved freely, raised children in a world without fear, pursued your own interests and ambitions. Instead, you were property, an object, a means to an end. Your body was not your own. Your children were taken from you. Your future was determined by others. And yet, despite everything, something within you remains unbroken. A spark of defiance, a flicker of hope, a refusal to be completely defined by the circumstances of your life. This resilience is the true legacy of the women of the harem, not the jewels they wore or the palaces they inhabited, but the strength of spirit that allowed them to survive in a world designed to destroy them. As night falls and the call to prayer echoes across Constantinople, you understand that your story, and the stories of all the women who suffered in the harem, must not be forgotten. They are not just tales of victimhood, but testimonies to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming oppression. They are reminders of the capacity for cruelty that exists within systems of absolute power, and of the courage it takes to resist, even in small ways. The imperial harem may be empty now, a museum piece for curious tourists, but its legacy lives on in every struggle for freedom, every fight for dignity, every assertion of humanity in the face of dehumanization. The women who suffered within its walls may be gone, but their voices echo through history, challenging us to confront the injustices of the past and present, and inspiring us to create a world where no one is reduced to property, where no one is caged for the pleasure of others, where no one is silenced or forgotten. As you close your eyes for what may be the final time, you find a measure of peace in this thought that though the harem tried to erase you, to break you, to reduce you to nothing, you have endured. You have survived. And in your survival, you have borne witness to the truth of your experience and the experiences of countless others. The nightmare may be ending, but the story continues, and in that continuation there is hope.